Okay, well, very warm welcome, Year 4 families. Thank you very much for coming along to this meeting. I'm going to share my slides now with you, so hopefully you'll be able to see these okay. So I think the first thing just to mention to you all is really how well our Year 4 pupils have settled into the course. I know certainly the autumn term is always a very busy term, and if they're going up into a new year group and they're meeting not only us for the first time, but also new teachers and things at school. So certainly we've been really impressed with the way that the children have settled into our routines and settled into their individual groups. I think also what we tend to find with year 4 pupils as well, there is a lot to remember in terms of things that they need to bring along. So there'll be a few reminders tonight about some of the things that we just want children to be a little bit more aware of in terms of things that they bring along to the lesson, but also things going on within those sessions as well. So just a few bullet points just to cover off first of all. As I say, I hope the children have settled in well into their Year 4 Teach It Right lessons, got to know their tutors, but also got to know the children within their groups. Sometimes it can be that there are children within their own school that they know well already, but for some of our classes, there will be children coming from lots of different locations, and it is all about settling in and hopefully getting to make some friends along the way as well. So the main focus within block one has been on verbal reasoning, so sort of word related question types. We've also had our Reading Boys students who started this year with creative writing. We decided to bring that in slightly earlier this year than we did before and get them thinking about their writing skills and also thinking a little bit about vocabulary as well connected to that. Um, I'm sure you all know this, but what we did think we would do is just make sure that everyone is clear about what verbal reasoning involves. So it is mainly about word and letter related questions, but there are also some question types that involve number and also alphabet codes as well. It's always a slight strange thing to see number questions within verbal reasoning, but there is still a lot of reasoning involved when you work out, say, number sequences or balanced equations. So verbal reasoning can sort of comprise of lots of different types of questions. So word, code, number, logical questions as well. One of the things that we're always very interested about is the types of questions that come up every year. And we got some wonderful feedback this year in terms of the types of questions that were in the exam. And that sort of helps us, I suppose, develop and make sure that the course is very appropriate to what your child is doing. But I do find in year 4, though, it is more about developing their skills, building up their familiarity. And we've been really impressed with the way that the children have started this academic year. Your children may have been telling you as well a little bit about how the structure of the lessons work. And one of the things that we do at the beginning of every lesson is we do mental arithmetic tests. And the mental arithmetic tests are very much designed to cover lots of areas of maths, make sure that they can answer questions quite quickly. Obviously, it's called mental arithmetic, so a lot of those questions are obviously done in their heads. And we will continue to do that in every block. So as we move forward into block 2, the children will continue to do these mental arithmetic tests. You might have found that your child's scores are quite low on these. Then maybe they're not getting that many right. But do trust in the process that as we go through the year, they get better and better and better, and their maths knowledge obviously improves. Mental arithmetic tests are a great way as well of covering lots of areas of maths. You can imagine in one mental arithmetic test, there might be 15 or so different topics that they're actually covering, from sort of fractions, equivalent values, to adding, to subtracting, lots of different areas of maths. Please also do make sure that your children have their sheets available. So every block, they will be given a little booklet of sheets. And they do need to make sure they've got those. Sometimes tutors will have spares, but it's much better if they've got their own sheets. And then, of course, as the tutor goes through the questions, they can record their answers down in those little boxes. The other thing, of course, that we do on a weekly basis is spellings. And we try and theme the spelling. So every single week they've got a list of words that they need to learn that have a link, have an association. Please encourage your child to learn these words. It is really important that children give those words attention. It is only 10 words after all, so even if it was learning 2 or 3 a day before their test, it's something that we do need them to do. And you will see how your child is getting on with their spelling tests. Their little spelling books that they do every week, you'll be able to see how many they've got right. And we certainly do reward them as well for getting lots right. I know the tutors will give out tokens and things if they've done well. In every block, you will have an overview like this. So in block 2, you'll get a similar sheet, and again, somewhere to sort of pin up. If you lose it or your child loses it, there is a copy on the student portal as well. So don't forget, if you ever do lose this sheet, that's where you should go to download your own copy, and you can print out another one for your child. What we tend to find with the spellings as well is that if there are any words that the children really struggle on or find difficult or have corrections that they need to make, they can actually put these within their word and meaning book. So the word and meaning book, which is in sort of alphabetical order, is designed to capture any words that children don't know. So please do encourage them to use that word and meaning book. It's a great way of also later on, and I know it's a long way away, but when they do come to revise, they've got all those words contained in one place that they don't know. It is not also restrained to the spellings. There might be words that come up in their books, their reading books from school that you want to also put in there as well. So please don't just think, oh, it's just a teach it right book. It can be a book used across their learning. Any words that they're unfamiliar with can go in there. You'll also notice on this particular screen those tokens. I know the children have recently just had an opportunity to spend their hard-earned tokens and have very much enjoyed doing that. And hopefully they've been very inspired by getting those and working hard towards week 5 in terms of being able to spend them. One of the things I thought would be also a good idea tonight was actually to just show you part of the assessments that the children had to do and just talk to you about some of the misconceptions, some of the things that we feel that children should hopefully learn from in terms of their assessments. So I think a couple of things that we've noticed is that children will always need to continue to develop their vocabulary. That comes from more reading, but also learning definitions of words. We do find, I suppose, with dictionaries that, yeah, children do sometimes have those with them, and it's fine for them to look words up. Some children just prefer using things like Google just to find quick definitions. I think that's probably to embrace the modern world a little bit with how children do look up words, and we really don't mind how they do it, but again, checking definitions is a good idea. The books that the children have been using, which are these books here in verbal reasoning, then there may be some of the tasks in there that they have not completed. And that might be because it wasn't set for homework, it wasn't set within the lesson time. So we would encourage children to finish anything off in those. We will never use those books again. So if there are tasks within those books that the children haven't done, they have done a huge amount, but there still will be tasks in there that are outstanding, then they can finish those in their own time. All the answers are obviously in the back of the book, so if you do want to check how they're getting on. I will mention certainly the CGP book, because it does have a series of assessment papers in the back that are brilliant. That at any time, just get the children to have a go at those, see how they're getting on, and so plenty more tasks that can be used. Even while children go into the next block, you might say, well, actually, I'd like to do a little bit more verbal reasoning. So please do utilize those if you need to. So the actual assessment that the children had to do was split up into different sections. So they had closest in meaning, they had odd to out, opposite in meaning, analogies, compound words, and your child should have brought this assessment home. So in their week 6 lesson, I appreciate some of the children haven't had those yet, but coming up this week, then it is a really good idea if you also have a look through there, see how they've got on. Tutors, of course, will have marked them and they can double check. But what we tend to find with these assessments is that children don't always finish the year 4 papers, and that's really down to things like time management, and that will come. So don't worry if your child didn't get through every single question. There's nothing to worry about. It may well be that they just need to work a little bit quicker. But what we tend to find is more about the questions they've actually answered is the most important thing. Children did find some of the closest in meaning questions quite difficult. Children need to think about words that could go into the same sentence. So they could sort of alternate between the words that they've chosen. What we found with some of the children is they made a link between a word, but they weren't necessarily closest in meaning. So again, if you think of question 5 here, where it says talk, chant and sing, some of the children may have gone for talk and shout because they thought, well, they're very similar words, but they don't mean exactly the same. So again, really important that children look really carefully at the meanings of those words. The other question type which children found quite challenging was something called compound words. And this is where you have 2 words and they're stuck together to make one word. Now, again, some of the children were able to make links between the words, but they weren't actually compound words. So again, learning these. So what examples have we got here? We've got things like breakfast, cupboard, which I know is a word that came up in one of the exams. We've got earthworm, again, knowing that those 2 words do go together. Sometimes phonically, they don't sound like they go together, but when you blend them together, they work. So if you think of 48, there was haddock, haddock. So when you blend it together, of course, haddock, some children may not know that haddock is a fish. Again, it might be a word to learn as a compound word. So have a look, see how many of the compound words your child managed to answer in their actual assessments. As you probably know by now, then obviously every week we are providing a set of homework tasks. We've got the you must and the you could. Please encourage your children as much as possible to do the you could. Get them to do a little bit extra, but the minimum expectation is to do the you must. With the you must, we do ask that parents do check that for us, put stickers on the books to see how they're getting on, and it will relate to what the children have been learning as well within the lessons. So as you can see there, compound words would have been what the focus was in week 4. So they would have then been doing more of those as part of their homework. And where possible, we really try and tie those things together. So what they do in class relates to what they do also for their homework as well. The other thing we would say about the homework tasks is that if you do feel that there was lots that child hadn't got done within the first block, and I know the first block's always really busy, then again, we would encourage them to try and get as much of that done as they possibly can. The other thing just to talk to you about as well, we obviously provide assessments according to what children are working on within year 4. And we do have a very large year 4 cohort doing Reading Boys. And they had a slightly different task. They had lots of questions they had to answer, but they also had to do a creative writing task as well. And it was quite a nice one. They had to look at the picture. The picture was here, like an underwater scene that they've got. And they had to describe, using their senses, what they could see, hear, smell, or touch, but using as many things like similes and metaphors and adjectives. And we were really impressed with what the children were producing. With Reading Boys, they'll have a very short period of time to produce a piece of creative writing. And that will only be marked if they pass the first stage, which is the English and the maths. But creative writing is a really important area for our Reading Boys students. And we spent a lot of time going through their papers, talking to the children about how they'd got on, but also how to develop their writing as well. And some of those elements were things like describing the nouns. They put a noun down. Did they put an adjective in front of it? Was it a powerful adjective? So sentence structure is always going to be important. We notice that some children not always using things like capital letters and full stops. So we've talked a lot about making sure that their sentence structure is strong. I'd also say for a lot of the children, it is also about developing their handwriting, making sure that they've got joined script. We often find those children that do well with the creative writing, if you've got a child that uses joined writing and a child that doesn't, certainly the marker often favours the child that has used joined writing. So if your child is using print, and when I talk about print, it's sort of putting a letter, taking their pen away, putting their pen back, that's not so great. So we do want to encourage the children to use joined handwriting as much as possible, because that also improves the speed that they write at. You can imagine if a child's printing their letters all the time, it obviously takes them a lot longer. As I mentioned with the children doing the GL assessment exams, and focusing on their verbal reasoning. Same with the creative writing. There are lots of tasks still left over in the books that they were using. Some lovely material, lots of creative writing and grammar material they were using. So if you do want your child to finish those off, please do. So that's for the children doing the Reading Boys creative writing block. And likewise with the homework as well, getting them to finish off those tasks that were outstanding. The tutors have worked really hard over the last few weeks in actually writing up reports for each of the children. So please do go and have a look at those. Where do you get them from? Well, you go on the Teach It Right website and you access the student portal. Click on there, and then you need to use your child's first name, their last name, and then their location. That's the username. And then the password is teachitright25@. So if you can't get on, please do get in contact with our head office. They will guide you through it if you're a little bit stuck. But when you go on, there will be a page that says My Learning and it says Assessment Feedback. If you click on Assessment Feedback, you will get that report that the tutor has written up. You will obviously, as I say, get copies of the papers back as well. And that's probably the most valuable asset that you've got, because you can use that as much as you want in terms of your child looking over. And they will have done that fix as well. They would look over the assessment together with the tutors to make sure that they understand any misconceptions. We find that process works really well. So throughout the year, when the child does the assessment in week 5, they will then do a review session in week 6. There is also some teaching and learning objectives to get through, but just so you are aware, that is the process of every block. So every 5 weeks, children will do their assessments and then they will review their papers in week 6. And the reason we do that is because we want to get them into good habits when they're being tested, so they understand what the process of being tested is like. And obviously it sets them up really well when they come to do their real 11+ exams, that they've gone through that process many times before, that they understand what time management is about, they understand how to use things like separate multiple choice sheet and things like that. And we will gradually introduce that as the year goes on. So I did want to talk to you also about what we do next. So you're very clear about kind of the next block of lessons. So we'll be focusing on non-verbal reasoning for those children that are going for the GL assessment exam. So if your child is going for the Slough Consortium, or your child is going for Buckinghamshire, or they're going for Kendrick, they will need to practice non-verbal reasoning. If your child is going for Reading Boys, you don't have to do non-verbal reasoning, so we won't be teaching you non-verbal skills. We will be focusing on something called English vocabulary. Now, I think they call it English vocabulary, but it's very similar, I guess, to verbal reasoning skills, really. So it'll be a lot of word question types, some of the missing letter ones that we know have been introduced by future stories as well. So we're very much looking forward to going into that block. So just to be clear in terms of the non-verbal, children will be given new books for the new block, and of course new homework overviews will be given out, so children know exactly what they've got to do. So there'll be lots of things to teach them around the different properties and the variables involved in nonverbal, and get them as familiar with that topic as we possibly can. And some lovely books that we'll be using, some Galore Park, some CGP. We're also going to be using a Schofield and Sims book as well, which is, I think, certainly with nonverbal, these are some of the best books that we can get our hands on, because there is a limited amount of good nonverbal reasoning out there, unfortunately. So these books will be perfect for the children to prepare and practice. As I'm sure you're probably aware, we go into lots of detail around how we plan our lessons, how we make sure there's a really good structure to the course. We'll be teaching the children a mnemonic. They'll learn that. I'm sure they'll be able to recap that to you, which will help them understand what variables to look for. We also play lots of games as well within the sessions around non-verbal reasoning, because we think of them more like puzzles than anything else. So we're looking forward to introducing that. As we go through the block, we'll also be suggesting how you can help your child improve their nonverbal skills. Some people say that it's a very innate trait, that children can either be good at nonverbal or they're not. But our belief is the more you practice it, the better you become. So that certainly is something that we will highlight to you and let you know, certainly in our newsletters and things, all of those different things that will help your child's nonverbal reasoning skills. As I mentioned earlier, with our Reading boys, we'll be going to English vocabulary. The book in the middle here will actually be substituted with a CM book, because CM do a lot of missing letters, and that's actually something that Future Stories, the relatively new exam board for Reading boys, use as well. So don't be surprised if it says CM on the front of it. There's a reason why we've chosen those books, because, as I say, they contain a lot of missing letters and things like that. So as with the nonverbal reasoning, we will plan those lessons into lots of detail, so everyone knows exactly what they'll need to cover in terms of the different question types involved. So I did want to just give you a few reminders as well. In terms of our Friday quizzes, please continue to attend those. I've been running some of those on a Friday, but also my colleague Sarah Holloway has been running those as well. They are great fun. Children really enjoy taking part in those. So if your child hasn't come along yet and they would like to join us on a Friday, we do those every Friday at 4 o'clock for our year fours, and they are just great. So if you would like your child to join us with that, please do come along. I think we had around 40 children last Friday, which was great. Also, our next book club, and now we run that every month. Will be on the 2nd of November. I know the previous one was all on poetry. I'm not quite sure what the next one is, but I'm sure it'll be another fun, packed session, really getting into reading skills and looking at different books. It's just a great way to inspire children, we feel, to read as much as possible. Can I ask parents as well, please, to continually mark the homework? Okay, it is really important to us. We like to see how the children are getting on with their work at home. Put those stickers on, make sure that the right colour represents how they're doing. So just as a reminder, green, excellent, getting everything right. Amber, maybe made a few mistakes, but they understand what they're doing. Red does indicate to us that they've struggled and found it a bit more difficult. That is absolutely fine. It's far better to put a red on there, so we're aware. We then track those results as well. So please do put those stickers on. The blue sticker is if your child's not managed to do it, but we'd rather you put that on so we are again aware. Maybe it's a case they've had a busy week or they've just not got around to doing it. Please continue to learn the spellings, as I highlighted earlier. We don't give out many words, so it really is important that they do spend some time learning them. And also bring everything to the lessons. I know my tutors are very particular about making sure that the kids have got everything that they need. Obviously, it's all hopefully in their Teach It Right bags. But if they do take things out during the week, just make sure it goes back in. Things like pencils. We have had quite a few children who turn up to the lessons and they don't have their pencils with them. So just make sure they've got their Teach It Right pencils or one from home in their bag. The other reminder, which is not on here, is that on Sunday, so on the 19th of October, between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, there will be our first parent workshop of this academic year. We are going to be focusing on verbal reasoning. The workshops run right the way throughout the year. You might decide that you want to wait until year 5, that you don't want to attend those in year 4. That, of course, is absolutely fine, because they are very much repeated every year, and the focus is very much on our year 5 pupils in terms of what we talk about in terms of the actual exam and the content. But if you would like to attend as a year 4 parent, you are more than welcome. So don't let me put you off coming along. We tend to do every single subject, each block, if you like. So we do verbal, then we do a non-verbal one. I think then we do English or maths, and then we do exam technique. So they are run right the way throughout the year. They are an opportunity for you to understand a bit more about the exam itself, the kind of content that's there, share with you some sort of tips and tricks around some of the question types. So if you would like to attend, please do. We will send out those links this week, and that will be taking place this coming Sunday, the 19th of October at 4 o'clock. One just final announcement before I have a look and see if there were any questions within the chat is just to mention that the Reading Boys exam for next year has been brought earlier. They've decided to do that in July. So this obviously may well affect your child once they do get into year 5, assuming it stays the same, rather than the children doing it in September. That, at the moment, as far as we know, just applies to Reading Boys, but it is interesting that they will be doing it in July rather than September. So the exam board of Reading Boys, Future Stories, I'm sure with the school have made that decision to bring it in slightly earlier. So it'll actually be July the 16th. I know you guys don't need to worry too much about that yet, because it's not your child's turn to worry about that until a few years' time. But it may well be that that remains the same. If other exam boards do change things or they move dates, we will, of course, inform you and let you know. Please do look out for our newsletters every Friday. They are very detailed. We do put a lot of information in there. And thank you very much for coming along this evening. As I said right at the beginning, we've been really impressed with the way the Year 4s have settled into Teach It Right Life, and long may that continue. Please do ensure that you are looking at their work, show interest in what they're doing. I often find with children, certainly with Year 4 children being so young, that if you show an interest in how they're getting on and what they're doing, it does inspire them, of course, to work harder and do what they need to do. I know that's also the job, of course, of the tutors, to inspire them and keep them working hard, but you as parents play a big part in that as well. Thank you very much. I'm just going to have a little look down through the questions that have come up as well. I know there's been some responses in there, which is great. So there's been some questions around Menti quizzes and things like that, when to join. But I think those questions that have been put in the chat hopefully have been answered. In our next parent meetings, they will actually be one-to-one parent meetings with the tutors. So we will arrange that over Zoom. It's nice to be able to get a few more lessons in before they actually meet you for the first time in a one-to-one parent meetings. And they're great for you to ask a little bit more in depth about how your child's getting on, how the tutor feels they're progressing, and a really good opportunity for us to share the progress of your child. Right, I'm going to stop my share there. Again, thank you so much for coming along. Hope you did find that useful and informative. Of course, look forward to seeing you all soon. We, of course, are approaching, as someone has said in the chat, we are approaching half term. So we will be having lessons on the weekend of the 25th and the 26th, but we won't then be having lessons from the 27th right up until, I believe it's the 3rd of November when we're back. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and I will stop the recording there.